Hi everyone, we'll be starting with bell work. So please scan the QR code to the right and you will be directed to Palette. Please answer the question that is given and be sure to include it into your forum post. You may pause the video and complete the bell work, and when you're done, you may continue.
So after you guys are done with the bell work, we're gonna go into our introductions. So hi, my name is Miss Sam, and today I have with me,
Miss Layla.
and we'll be going over chapter 7 and 8, which is Art and Social Studies and Art and Literacy.
So moving on to our table of contents. So we will start with bell work and then we did our introductions. So we'll move on to our class norms, then our objectives, and then into our warm-up activity, and then into chapter 7 and 8, and then onto our main activity, and our final one will be our assessment.
Okay, so for our classroom norms, we have listen actively and be engaged. So I know we're all in our own homes and we're online, but I want you guys to listen to the presentation and yeah. And so number two, it connects. So I want you guys to participate in all the activities. So even though the bell work and the main activity are only required, I want you guys to try the warm-up activity too and the assessment. And lastly is to have fun and enjoy.
Our student learning objectives, so we will be able to, one, recognize how art deepens our understanding of history, culture, and civic identity. Two, explain how art strengthens reading comprehension, vocabulary, and written expression. And three, describe how creating and analyzing art fosters empathy, critical thinking, and creativity across subjects.
So here's our warm-up activity. It's called the quick sketch timeline. So in the next slide, you'll be given a historical period. And since we're all online, I want you guys to set a timer for yourselves for 1 minute and pause the video. So in that 1 minute, I want you guys to pause and sketch 1 to 2 important symbols, tools, or clothing items from that time, or anything that reminds you of that historical period. So after you're done sketching, I want you guys to write 3 sentences describing the meaning of your sketches. And here we have your historical period. So your historical period is World War II, and you can go ahead and set that 1 minute timer. And when you're done, come back to the presentation.
And to access our key point handout, you can scan the QR code on the left.
So after, now we'll go into chapter 7, which focuses on art and social studies, understanding the contextual approach to the visual culture.
So the overview for chapter 7 is art as a lens for understanding history and culture, and it encourages empathy and appreciation for diverse perspectives. It connects visual expression to civic values and community identity, and supports exploration of geography, traditions, and historical events.
So now we dig deeper. Why should we integrate art in social studies? So it makes abstract historical concepts tangible. So we may be like World War II. We don't know anything about it, but when we have art, like artworks, pictures, we can visualize the scene. So number two, it encourages critical thinking through visual analysis. So we could go back to the Renaissance period. A lot of the paintings there were very abstract, and it just gets the students and our minds thinking critically, like, why would the artist do this? And we engage multiple learning styles, and it builds connections between the past and the present.
So moving on to instructional strategies. So we use historical artworks as primary sources for discussion, and it can incorporate map making, murals, and cultural artifact studies. and it facilitates art projects tied to historical or civic themes, and it guides students in interpreting symbolism into art. So some of the strategies from the chapter include using like historical artworks as primary sources, and it incorporates like the map making murals and studies cultural artifacts. And these activities help students interpret symbolism and understand the deeper meanings behind different visual representations.
So, classroom applications. So, as teachers, we could have students create murals depicting local or national history. So, this can be a shared mural between the class, and we can have them analyze propaganda posters to discuss civic messages. So, here we have an example of a propaganda poster. It says a message, but then we can also focus on the artwork, and it just shows like we could have students critical thinking, like why do you think the artist chose this photo? And yeah, and we could have them study indigenous art to explore cultural traditions. So studying art is basically you get to connect with different cultures. So yeah, they get to connect with maybe other cultures or their own. And they could also use art to illustrate timelines or historical narratives.
So moving on to benefits for students. So it strengthens observation and interpretation skills. So students are able to look at the art and, really find out what it means. And it encourages empathy and cultural awareness. So different cultures are included in different artworks. It promotes active engagement with historical content and supports collaborative learning through group art projects.
So these are the 10 themes of social studies, and it's the NCSS framework. So we're going to go briefly into each theme. So for theme one, it focuses on culture, which is the study of beliefs, values, languages, and traditions, and how art has a part in this is it reflects and preserves cultural identity, which is very important nowadays, especially when sometimes culture is being forgotten. So students can create art inspired by cultural heritage. So theme two is time, continuity, and change. So it's understanding history and historical representation. So art is a primary source for studying the past because we can look at photos from the past and we can see what was happening at that specific time. And we can compare artworks from different eras. So, theme three is people, places, and environments. So, geographic relationships and human environment interaction. So, we can look at landscape art and maps as learning tools, and we can create visual representations of local environments. So, even if we're not in the specific area, we could visualize and see like the landscape. And so, theme four is individual development and identity, which is how personal identity is shaped. So we could have them do self portraits and autobiographical art, and it's used as self expression. So, theme five is individuals, groups, and institutions, which are roles and relationships in society. And so, art plays a part by depicting community life and institutions and collaborative art projects. So, this can be the mural.
Moving on to theme six, this is power, authority, and governance. So structures of power and decision making, and it's political cartoons or propaganda posters, like we previously explained, and art as civic commentary. For theme seven, we have production, distribution, and consumption. So economic systems and resource use, art showing work, trade, and industry, and it designs projects related to goods and services. And for theme eight, we have science, technology, and society. So this is the impact of innovations on life, are documenting technological change, and creative projects imagining future tech. For theme nine, we have global connections, interdependence of nations and cultures, art showing cross-cultural exchange, and collaborative projects with global themes. And lastly, theme 10 is civic ideals and practices. So rights, responsibilities, and civic participation, public art promoting civic values, and student created advocacy posters.
So now we move on to chapter 8, which focuses on art and literacy, reading and language arts.
For the overview of Chapter 8, so art as a pre-writing and comprehension tool, visual storytelling supports understanding of text. It encourages vocabulary growth through descriptive discussion, and it helps students connect personal experiences to reading and writing.
So again, why should we integrate art in literacy? So drawing helps organize ideas before writing. So what I like to do is sometimes I like to draw the scene and then I could create my own outline from that and create my own story. So number two, illustrations make abstract concepts concrete. So as we said, we could just have a sentence like the fox jumped over the fence. And so to make this into concrete, we would create an illustration. We could visualize it. And it supports diverse learners, including English language learners. So this is especially important because English language learners, their first language isn't English. So you may be giving them a sentence, but they don't understand it. But you could be drawing it and they can understand it even better because it comes across better since we don't speak their same language. And number four is it builds confidence in self-expression. So art is a good way for self-expression. You could be doing anything, painting, drawing, you're expressing yourself.
Moving on to instructional strategies. So use illustration to plan and sequence narratives. You compare picture books with related art activities. It encourages students to create visual story maps and integrate art journals for reflection and creative writing prompts. So for example, in the classroom, students might maybe draw a scene from a story, and it could aid the comprehension and create a character portraits, and they can use descriptive word banks to explain those specific characters to better understand a story.
So these are the classroom applications. So how we would use art in a language arts class. So for the first, we could draw a scene from a story to aid comprehension. So just like Layla said, we could use a story and then we could illustrate it to visualize. And number two, we could create character portraits with descriptive word banks. So this just helps students get used to describing things and it also helps them see the whole picture. And number three, we could design comic strips to retell or extend a narrative. So comic strips are good because it incorporates illustrations and words. So we could have them do that to retell a story, or we could have them extend a story, so add on to that story. So we could also use collaborative mural projects to summarize a shared reading. So this would be like a class discussion or a class project where they would have to come up with a mural based on the story.
And benefits for students. So it strengthens their comprehension and recall. So, they're able to recall like what happened in the story through different artworks, and they can expand their vocabulary through visual verbal connections. And it also encourages creativity alongside their literacy skills. And it also promotes engagement and enjoyment in reading and writing.
So now we'll move on to our main activity, and it's called the Identity and Heritage Collage. So for this activity, you will create a collage artwork on Canva representing your own cultural background and community. Once you complete your digital collage, you will write an artist statement explaining your choices and present how these connect to a larger cultural or historical theme. So for your artist statement, it's basically your reasoning behind your collage. So for each element, you would describe it. And so you'd be getting 15 minutes to complete it. And once you are done, be sure to post it on your forum. And so these are some examples. Here we have different types of elements. It says pop, Brooklyn, and a big B. And then we have here various forms of artworks from different cultures. And we have here more. And then we have, I know this one is from the Filipino culture because of the Filipino flag.
And moving on to our assessment. So this is a multiple choice quiz. So for the first one, what is the main purpose of integrating art into social studies? And for two, how does art help students develop empathy in social studies?
Number three is which instructional strategy uses art as a primary source? And number four is which classroom application connects art to civic messages?
For five, what benefit do group art projects provide students in social studies? Six, what is the main focus of chapter 8?
Number seven is how can art serve as a pre-writing tool? Number eight is why is art integration especially useful for English language learners?
For nine, which classroom activity helps students retell or extend a narrative? 10, which benefit do students gain from art in literacy?
So that is it for our presentation. Thank you everyone for watching, and
Thank
we hope you had fun.